The private security industry has come under the spotlight, and some security experts say the Private Security Industry Regulatory Act needs to be reviewed. And for more on this, we're now joined by security analyst Andy Mashaile. Now he joins us via our video link. Mr. Mashaile, thank you so much for your time this evening. Of course, there are now calls following what we saw last week when it comes to that alleged a security company that was found to have been carrying out military training to those 95 Libyans. When you look at the PSIRA Act, what would you say are the problems associated with the Act?
One, you have seen the 95 Libyans arrested there, and you have seen that camp being turned from an ordinary security training camp into a semi-military or quasi-military training facility. Now, that is the first problem that we identify that is loaded in the Act. Loaded in the Act in a sense that the Act does not speak to the issues of continuous monitoring as well as evaluating these training facilities. At the end of the day, you only picked up late that some of the training facilities are not up to scratch. So I'm assuming, and I would want to advise those who are responsible from the authority to look at a number of things that would inform that the facilities where they train, security companies that operate in our country, operate with within the framework of the law, informed by the regulations. Remember, the regulations are the enabling legislation in terms of tactics, in terms of what's to be done and what is not to be done on the ground. So the long and short of this whole situation would be the Act needs to be reviewed, as well as the attending regulations, so that there can be what happens on the left in terms of law enforcement and what happens on the right in terms of provision of various services within the security space is well regulated, is well understood, and is well known.
Mr. Mashaile, one would ask, why do you think that there is a shortfall there when it comes to monitoring these companies? You point out to issues around monitoring and evaluation of these security companies. Why do we see this existing, that there's no oversight when it comes to private security companies?
Some of these security companies operate as if they are running fish and chips operations, and not having respect for the law, not having respect for the attending regulations as informed by the PSIRA Act 56 of 2001 with those attending regulations. So long story short, we are looking at a situation where we need to beef up all those systems and mechanisms and frameworks that would ensure that this security company does not operate on paper, and this security company has firearms. This security company has no employees, but it hires out the firearms. This is well documented in our country. In the last 5 years, we have seen companies that were hiring out the firearms to people of very bad intentions, of no good intentions. And this is one of the reasons why we need to look at beefing up the Act. Beefing up the Act means amending the Act, as well as looking at the attending regulations, the enablers of a well-secure, a well-run, effective and efficient security companies working within the confines of the law, and on the one hand providing services to those who demand that service of a private security company.
How often do we even see, these security companies being monitored, and how often do we see them actually being closed down if they are not complying with the law?
In the last 5 years that I have tracked and familiarized myself with the security establishment. A security establishment here, I mean private security establishment. I have mentioned a minute or so ago that Some of the companies exist on paper. Some of the companies hire out these firearms. Now, this suggests a number of things. One would be there is no one who knows. There's no one who keeps track. In my research, there's no one who is keeping track of these companies. Some of them that are registered and owned by foreign nationals. We know that they have been operational in the last 5 years. I can take it to in the last 10 years, where there has been everyone doing as he pleases in this space. This is one reason why I would support that the Act, as well as the attending regulations, needs to be amended so that you don't have the situation of foreign nationals owning security companies. When you go to the centers of the world, when you go to the black doors of the world, you find security companies operated by foreign nationals. Even when you drive around the city, you would find the vehicles of security company vehicles owned by foreign nationals. And I want to advise the leadership in this space that we need to know who is where and what is he or she doing in the space of security, so that you don't have security companies that hire out firearms for cash in transit crimes to be committed.
And when we look at the latest development of what has transpired in Mpumalanga at that military camp or that security company, one would also ask, what does it say about our country's state security if, some security companies were able to look at loopholes of this nature and take advantage of them?
I will base my response on the Human Rights Commission of the 2021 unrest or mini revolution, for the want of a nice word. We have learned from the findings of this Human Rights Commission, we have learned that law enforcement and our intelligence agencies were caught napping, were caught off guard. Now, what happened in Mpumalanga, the arrest of the Libyans, fits squarely into what the report was saying. I am sure from the recommendations of the report, beefing up of security, national security intelligence agencies or intelligence gathering agencies that must look after national security, working hand in glove with law enforcement agencies, those that also has within them the crime intelligence. When we look into that space, we have a responsibility to make sure that we do things differently, from gathering intelligence, from knowing that the people were in our country for 4 months, and from knowing that, which might be one of the reasons why we acted so late. You want to allow them to operate so that you can establish the links and networks that support these kinds of people. But with the crimes that happened around that training facility, it suggests that we were slow in terms of taking off the steeple, so that, or jumping over the steeple, so that we can be able to ensure that the ordinary person in that space is not a victim of crime. We have learned of the rapes in that area. One, I am not suggesting that it is those 95 Libyans, but for the fact that the people in the area were seeing and reporting as we have learned, and we reacted in this slow manner, suggests that we need to beef up, and national security will be compromised as it was compromised.
All right, Mr. Mashaile, thank you so much for your time and for your analysis. That's security analyst Andy Mashaile giving us his insight there when it comes to the issues around national security, rather particularly private security in our country.